Hi, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente, and welcome to Astrology Unplugged. Tonight, we're going to be talking about some heavyweights. And I'm sure if you belong to my newsletter or mailing list, you get notified of this on Tuesdays. We're getting an awful lot of people, so that's a good sign. Okay, I don't know what happened, but during the week when I give a lot of consideration on Mondays, I think of what do people want to hear about. And I have done Trump. I've done the orange one many times. He's a really peculiar cat. And I've even done Hitler. And I started to think about comparing the two. Then I got criticized by somebody about comparing the two. When then I thought to myself, certainly the two are not equivalent.
Well, he compared himself to Jesus Christ.
I am going to do the show, thank you. Okay. I can't have the interruptions because I get too distracted. So did John Lennon. Sorry, Erica. Anyhow, here's where I came out of this. Would I be surprised if situations worked out in such a way that Mr. Trump, the orange one, were responsible for millions of people dying? No, that was my answer. I would not be surprised. I don't think it'll happen. I think there's more of a human in there than we suspect. But would I be surprised? No, if it benefited him. Anyhow, tonight's not to do that. It's not to compare he murdered how many, you're going to murder how many. That's not what it's about. It's about two of the possibly most important personalities of the 20th century. You may want to fight that, but who's on the news every night, every shot, at all times? Trump. That's pretty heavy duty. Anyhow, I thought it's very interesting astrologically for you to see this, and there are no common symbols. He's got the despot's symbol, and the other guy's got the despot symbol too. But we're going to start with Hitler. We're going to go through his chart, and it's just fascinating. And obviously, you don't get to the point like these guys get to unless you're pretty fascinating. It just doesn't happen. The planets have to align, not the stars. The planets have to align. It's another thing Shakespeare got wrong. He didn't get much wrong, though. So we'll take a look at Mr. Here's Hitler. This will interest you. Okay, here we go. Everybody hears me okay? All right. As you can see, Hitler, like many despots, was a Taurus. As he would agree, he was an artist. He was a Jew. He was Austrian. Was not German. He had the signature Venus-Mars conjunction. Now, I've been following this all my life ever since 78, reading about Venus-Mars conjunct by Stephen Arroyo. Arroyo claims that Venus-Mars is very common, and he's right. It's very common for capital N narcissists. And I've followed it, and I've seen people with Venus and Mars that were not narcissistic. I've seen some that were kind of like it, and I've seen a bunch of them that are really narcissistic. And you got to pay attention to the sign that it's in. These two planets are in the sign of Taurus. So what happens is the Mars and the Venus become in love with each other, the male and the female, the yin and the yang. He's just fascinated with himself. He's fascinated with what he does. And when you have the wrong planets when you have the wrong planets or the wrong combination of planets in the early signs, the only thing that matters is you. Now, I know you guys can't understand that because you're not selfish. Mr. Hitler was. He was enveloped within himself. Plus, he was abused and a lot of other things. Plus, he was a karmic symbol and he was also an avatar. So when the Venus and Mars, which happen to be very ultra strong in this chart, when Venus and Mars are together, they really can be problematic, especially when you can see that the Venus and Mars are square to Saturn. This is the father. Saturn's 13, Venus and Mars are 16. Venus is rare, it's retrograde, so it's within 3 degrees of a square. This is very problematic. Now, when Saturn is in Leo, and when Saturn is in the midheaven, that's what they call that when it's in the 10th house. People will call that in the midheaven or the 10th house. Saturn is very strong there, and that means he wants to be the leader. He wants to be the leader of this, of that, of everything. And when Saturn's in Leo, he wants to be the leader of everything. And it also shows we got to start out kind of small because it's easy to get fanatical about a chart. We also see it squaring Venus Mars. So it tells me clearly that he had a lot of very bad problems with his father, and he never learned to socialize. Okay, because the Venus Mars, when you're in love with yourself, you've obviously not learned how to socialize. So this is the biggest problem in the chart, is the Venus Mars squared to Saturn. What does it mean? Well, every time you Venus, you think you should Mars. And every time you Mars, you think you should Venus. And Saturn's never happy with you. And it's a feeling all the time. What he's doing, he didn't go out and kill a lot of people. He went out and killed his father over and over. That's what he was doing. Killing his father over and over and over again because his father was a symbol of him not being acceptable. Okay, now, what have I learned about Taurus people, Taurus males? They can make terrible leaders, and I've done articles on this with Jim Jones and with Trotsky and so many of the leaders who have, Lenin, who have failed us. Some of them are good, but one reason that the Tauruses can make really poor leaders, one reason, some of them are good, of course. One of them is they sound so confident. They sound so right. And the typical German citizen, typical American citizen doesn't feel that correct. And they're easily swayed by somebody that sounds so right. You've heard him speak, even though it's in German. I don't know what he's saying, but it sounds bad. Boy, it sounds rigorous, and it sounds like, I'm not going to argue with this guy. Tauruses are tough because they're physical, they're earth sign, and they're fixed. So that's one of the things you see right away. Very important part of the chart. All right. Now, you'll notice, I'm not going to take anything in a particular order. You'll notice that across the ascendant, we see that Libra is rising. Across the ascendant is Mercury opposite Uranus, and the sun is opposite Uranus, kind of widely, but Mercury's close, is 6 degrees opposite Uranus. And when two planets are opposite each other across the ascendant, this is like walking down the street. Did you ever walk down the street and you go under a neon sign that's under its last minutes and the neon's going, just that's what this is like. And when something's close to that ascendant, the louder it gets. The static is phenomenal. So it becomes by far the most important part of the chart. Mercury in Aries, opposite Uranus in Libra, retrograde. What's that mean? First of all, it means he thinks he's a genius, and probably in some ways he was a genius. I mean, he did accomplish an awful lot. I can't vouch for it, but he did get a lot of things done. He certainly had off-the-wall ideas. That's all Uranus. Mercury opposite Uranus. He's not a typical laid-back, earthy Taurus. He's an out-of-his-mind despot. Notice in the chart that pretty much the Uranus is the bucket handle. See the bucket? What's the handle? Uranus. So everything in this chart is driven by some past life. You wait till you see his past life chart. Everything in this chart is driven by some past life fanatical, revolutionary idea. Okay? And I'm going to tell you this very clearly. One of the main problems with a Taurus who gets bent out of shape is this. They make everything sound so simple. They make it sound so simple. We got vermin in the street. Let's get rid of the vermin. Be all right. They're going, hey, yeah. We got vermin in the street. They're no good. Let's get rid of them. The vermin. Yeah. The Tauruses can sound very, very simple. It's a very dangerous quality to have. That's why if you ever get behind a Taurian candidate for something, tell yourself, nah, it's not as simple as what this guy's saying. Okay? Because it's not. All right. But you got Mercury opposite Uranus. You got a guy who's got his whole life dependent on fanatical ideas. Now, what is a Taurus doing? What is a Taurus about? A Taurus is very simple. I had a hard time writing that chapter in that book on Taurus because it's so simple. It's non-complicated. I had a hard time writing it because it's so much based upon getting anchored properly. And you can't get anchored properly if a whole bunch of vermin are running around the streets. They got to go. I don't agree with it, but this is his thinking. So you multiply it and it gets inside that bingo rolling pin, the rolling ball, the rolling bingo balls. And every night his mind's going like this, is going around. And he's becoming more and more convinced that he's right. And he's got thousands of yes men all around going, yeah, boss. Yeah, boss. Yeah, boss. And you got yourself danger. So he was this way a long time before the Nazi Party. He was beaten up by his dad a lot. So this is very, very dangerous possibilities. When you do charts like these two guys, you will see that they are not human. They are not human examples. They are avatars of movements. Both of them are avatars of the movements of hatred, movements of exclusion, movements of othering. Awful stuff, awful stuff. Okay, let's keep going. But you know his chart is based upon crazy fanatical ideas. And where do you go with fanatical ideas in the birth chart? Well, you got to go to his past life chart. You know the guy's got fanatical ideas. Probably some of them are good. But you got to go to his past life chart to figure out what's the fanatical ideas all about. So let's go look at his 12th harmonic. Thank you for being patient with me, because this is not an easy subject tonight. Okay, here's Hitler's. Here's his 12th harmonic. All right. Thank you for being patient. All right. Now remember, if this is my specialty, doesn't mean it's correct. It just happens to be 48 years of astrology. I think this is the key to astrology, in my opinion. What does this mean? This means that in his past lives as a Jew, this is how he saw himself as a Jew. It's how he saw himself at the feet of God. This is how he saw himself in 1888, when he's about to take a new lifetime in 1889. And when he took the new lifetime, he's trying to decide what is wrong. What's wrong with me? What do I need to fix? He didn't come into this lifetime, I'm going to try to rule the world. He grew from there. But what is he showing his habits are? What is he showing his basis is, his bent is, all throughout these years in between lives? He's got a fanatical top of the chart that's next to Eris. He's got Uranus next to Eris, and they're in a nice little mild sign of Scorpio. This guy's hell on wheels. I don't know what he wants, but he sure wants it. And he wanted it back then. And what's it opposite? Pluto in Taurus. So we don't have any idea. It's just too difficult. We don't have any idea what it really means in his past life, but we see that his chart is embedded in power. He's just enthralled with power. Does that mean he comes into this lifetime feeling powerless and he has to have all these powerful experiences? I don't know, but we know he's obsessed with power. What do we put next to his sun? Neptune. Now, what do you think sun next to Neptune does when it's 1 degree away and it's in the sign of Aries? It gives you delusions of grandeur. So I think that he's got I think he had some kind of delusion of, hey, it's me and you, baby. God picked me to go with you, and we're going to dominate everything. There's some signs of this in this chart. I don't know. It's very difficult to do. Sun, Neptune, Pluto, Eris. Powerful. Don't try to settle the 12th harmonic. It's too hard. Pick up little pieces. Pick up little pieces and go on your way. Keep reading. Go back and forth to the natal chart. But you can see that he's got these fanatical ideas. And the fanatical ideas are based upon this power need. And he could have been born and just told, you are the powerful chosen one. We've seen that before. Okay, very intriguing. Let's go back. Now, since Venus and Mars are together in the birth chart, they're going to be together in all the harmonic charts. So he's got the Venus and Mars in Libra, which is the narcissism right opposite Sun Neptune. So he believes everybody loves me. God done it. Look at the millions of people. They all love me and they love my ideas. This has really turned dangerous. This has really turned dangerous. What does it really mean? What does it really mean? It means that in his God life, in his spiritual life, he knows that he needs to bow down before God. He needs to be reverent. He needs to show great respect for his God and put himself in place. But it can get out of hand. Megalomania can get out of hand, especially when up and down the power line. This is the power line of the zodiac. You got Uranus, Eris, and Pluto. So you got a guy who's born with misgivings already with his need for power. Now take a look at this. Sun Neptune is opposite Venus and Mars, and it fights a good bit. Where does it send its energy? It sends its energy, excess energy, over to Jupiter in Cancer. Well, Jupiter is very strong in the sign of Cancer. And in the fifth house, it's somebody who exaggerates when he talks. You've seen the films of him talking. It's just great exaggeration. But the point is that Jupiter allows him expression. He gets it off of his chest. I don't think this man needed Saturn in Virgo. Do you? I don't think he needed Saturn in Virgo squared to his moon. I bet that created all kinds of self-hatred. So you've got yourself a boiling pot, this chart. This chart is a boiling pot. It is a dangerous chart. As we go back to the natal chart, let's see here. All right, here's the natal. So we want to keep coming back and forth between the two because the one forms the other. And we keep coming back to the natal chart, which is all born and wrapped around this theory of radical ideas. Radical ideas. And I can assure you that when he started, his main idea was not to get rid of the Jews. His main idea was, how do I gain power? He figured out a way. We've all seen how easy it is to con the common people. Just tell them some story, Mr. Orange. Just tell them some stupid story. And they're like, yeah, okay. We're going to see that later with Dr. Tangerine. So things have to go right. And the reason things go right is not because he's doing right. It's because he is pre-selected karmically as an avatar of some issue. I don't understand it. I mean, I got hints of it. The man is an avatar of some ugly energy that was floating around Germany at the time. I mean, I've been to Europe. Some of the nicest people I've ever met were the Germans. Fabulous people. I didn't go there in 1940 though. I know that. But it's not just somebody with a bad chart that went bad. It's not how it works. He is chosen by the moment. He is chosen by the collective, and he feels that collective, but he feels the collective aberrantly. That's the problem. He's too Arisian, just like this clown is. He's feeling the Eris too aberrantly. And if Trump is anything, he is a great, big, fat aberration of the planet Eris. Period. Clear as a bell. You'll get to that later. So, let me get this straight here. So we go back to the birth chart. And what do we see here? We see Chiron is in the ninth house, indicative opposite the moon. It's indicative that his wound is an emotional wound. He's not healthy emotionally. So we flip over to the fourth harmonic. The fourth harmonic is accomplished by multiplying everything by 4 and putting it back on the chart. And 4 is the Cancer number. 4 is the number for emotions. So we want to zoom in on Mr. Hitler's emotional nature. So we zoom in to this chart. And what do you see here? You got Pluto opposite Uranus. Boy, is that powerful. Very close. Pluto at 18, 19, opposite Uranus at 18, both making a T-square to Saturn in Virgo. Saturn in Virgo. It's got to be this way. It's a tough planet. All people that have it have a tough time with it. Some have it tougher than others. But Saturn in Virgo can be a bitch if it's inside you, because it's just never happy with what you do. Things just aren't right. You feel criticized everything you do. So this is a very tough planetary symbol to carry in a birth chart. Then you've got in the ninth house of this emotional chart, you've got 2 Aries planets and a Taurus planet, both square to the sun, and the sun is in Leo. So in his very troubled emotional chart, you see a lot of, but this is what I want. That's what this chart says. This is what I want. And everything you're doing it wrong. And it's all probably a projection about him feeling that everything he does is wrong. And he projects it all outward, especially being an early sign like Taurus. Very tough chart. That was the main house I wanted to see. When Mr. Hitler died, it's fascinating. Look at where the planets were. When he died, here's the birth chart. Saturn was right here. Shot himself in the head. And he got married the night before. Saturn was on his Chiron. His wound was that he was not emotionally healthy. Sure, he made her go with him. Coward. This is what killed him. It wasn't anything else. Well, it was the Americans and the Russians. But Saturn was here, opposite the moon. This was the final straw, as the Saturn was starting to return. He had lived through too much. He had been very successful. He had been able to gain a lot of power. He did it. But he pissed off a lot of people in the process, and it ultimately backfired. Any questions on Mr. Hitler? Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to move on to the orange one.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I knew a very powerful, well-known bishop, Catholic bishop, who said that when he was a young man, he was in Germany and heard Hitler give a speech, and he said he was so enthralled with it, he was cheering with everybody else. He was just carried away.
Sure. What are you? I'll get to you, Peggy, what are you going to do when you hear God speak to you with certainty and thunder? What the hell are you going to do? You can say to your buddy, well, I don't think you got that point right. What are you going to do? He sounds right. And I caution you, a lot of American successful politicians have a lot of Taurus in them, and that's the number one force you need in your chart to sound right. Because we don't, as voters, we got a keen eye looking for any weakness. We're looking for any little nervousness, any little quavering. So your body, I'm sure your buddy had it right, and I'm sure it didn't even matter what he said. Do you know, I don't know if you know this, but if you go to DC and you travel through the Holocaust Museum, the first half of the walk through is just newspapers. And it's the newspapers of the day, and the photographs, and the psychology, and headlines, and headlines, and headlines. And you can just see how he slowly turned up the hatred. Turn up the hatred. And as you go through this museum, it gets smaller. Every room gets smaller and smaller. And the next thing you know, you're in a boxcar full of spectacles and shoes and belts. And next thing you know, you're at the end and you're in this tiny little boxcar, and you come out at the little altar they have there that's small and it's full of candles and people praying, but it's a hell of an emotional experience. But he was just like Trump is. He was an avatar of what happens when you go wrong and you listen to the gravelly ego. It's going to throw people away. It's going to exclude those people are bad, not our people. Those people got the cuties. We don't have them. They do. You'll see a lot of that coming up with Trump, much more. Yes, Peggy.
Well, okay, we've gone down, 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 down. Is there any redemption? Is there any redemption for him in his future chart?
I can't. Oh, no. I cannot see in a chart. I cannot see in a chart that somebody will get redeemed. I don't think that's a possible thing to see.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's still as bad as his past chart.
Well, I don't
thought.
know. And I don't think that's for me to say. And I really wouldn't be surprised either way. And I know if Jesus were here, Jesus would forgive him because he was doing the best he could. He was getting rid, in his mind, these vermin were the problem. He was getting rid of the vermin for the good of the German people. So I'm sure he would forgive him. But you got to get out of this mentality of any sentence, any question in astrology that starts with the word will. If it's got the word will in front, can't be answered. We don't know. We don't know what it'll do. It might be worse next time. I don't know. But I do know that humans have learned a lot about him. And I know that traveling through Germany, these people have learned a lot about him. Thank you, Peggy. Go ahead, Rick.
I noticed that Pluto conjoined Neptune in the 8th house, showing a very strong spiritual conviction.
That's
towards
exactly
what he was
right.
saying.
And that makes it worse because you do think you're chosen.
It's in alignment with that 12th harmonic of the Sun conjoined Neptune.
Yeah.
And Eris is being natally in Pisces, looks like it's even given more to having a spiritual purpose.
That's right. And then you
giving
believe,
voice to it.
Then you believe God sent you here to do this.
And that Uranus in Libra just trying to make things right and bring balance.
That's right. For the people, because I love them so much. Give me that.
Right.
Give me that baby.
Hmm.
You're exactly right. There's always a fanatical element that has to do with corrupt vision of spirit. Very good. Let's move on.
I also saw one thing that I should share. He has
Yeah.
no major planets in water, which made it, and the only thing he has in water is Chiron, making me think he only had empathy for himself and his own wounds.
Well, that's a very good thing to point out. Yep. That's very, very possible. And that's certainly how it's constructed. But when you watch somebody that's an early sign of the zodiac, I don't like the word maturity. I don't think that's correct. But when you watch early signs of the zodiac, which are self-oriented, you see that they don't think about something beyond their eyeballs. It's all about them. And it's part of their nature. But this chart is really, really a real good example of how I pulled all this off. Thank you very much, Rick. Let's move on to the orange one here. Oh, brother. I've done him about 4 times already, and I haven't done him in a long time. I stopped doing because I got sick of him. Okay. Now this is an absolutely remarkable chart. This chart is an imperfect storm. This chart is unbelievable. Mr. Fred Trump, you only needed 1 condom. That's all it took. 1 condom to save us from all these problems. But no. Okay. We got the Gemini, Sun, Uranus. There's the potential brilliance once again. You got the Sun in Gemini and the Moon in Sag. Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sag. Talk about salesmen.
Mm-hmm.
Leo rising. Mars in Leo. Rising in the first house. That means you think I won't do it? I'll do it. Put up the challenge. I don't care what it is. I'll do it. Want me to own an XFL football team? Sure, I'll buy one. Do whatever I gotta do. Sun opposite moon. It was not an eclipse. Full moon in Sag. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I'll tell you now before I forget. I've seen this chart with its weak spots, like Venus, Saturn. I've followed this chart closely for over 10 years. I've seen this chart blasted. And nothing happens to it. I will show you rows and rows of my egg that I have on my face. I finally gave up with this guy. This guy is not predictable. He's not. You cannot predict him, and that's very Geminian, and that's very Moon and Sag flag, and who knows why. He's another avatar. In my opinion, he is the avatar of the ugly American. That's what I think. He's not stupid. People think he's stupid. He's actually brilliant in a certain way. He just doesn't have any common sense. He certainly has no conscience. Now, I've tried this on this thing called Facebook. I've tried this for several years now, and I've had no takers. I've asked people to give me 1 adjective, anyone that is true for him, except for the fact any nice adjective, flattering, that is flattering for Mr. Trump, other than the fact that he does dress rather well. He's rather well dressed. I have never gotten a response from anybody. Every nasty adjective you can think of applies. So I got to thinking about a year ago, why in the world would somebody put up with this? The jokes about him and the embarrassment that he is. Why would any ego put up with this? Pounding all the time. Well, a big ego is the answer. Wait till you see his mugshot, Mr. Angry. Deborah, I'm sure you're right. Let me show you that the answer I got. It is very crystal clear. Okay. Look at the bucket pattern swinging from Eris. The bucket pattern swinging from Eris. That means you've all heard of the puffer fish, that the more you make it angry, the bigger it puffs up. I don't care what you do, he's just going to puff up bigger. It's attention. It's attention. I'm pissing you off. That's great. And that was my answer. It's the Eris. Mr. Trump came to us in 2005 when Eris came. Mr. Trump brought us the negative side of Eris. The positive side of Eris is fight for people that aren't treated right, fight for the people who are not counted, fight for the people who've been treated unjustly. The negative side is bitch and moan and tell everybody how bad you've been treated. Bitch and moan and cry and whine about how you've been screwed. Wah. So that's what he did. And he's smart. He knew how to ride that. And he's got tons of people following him. If you've ever heard them interviewed, they don't make any sense at all. But they've found a way that bitching and moaning is okay. Wow. All the way to the point, and I never thought this would happen, all the way to the point where our democracy is shaking. This all happened during a Pluto return in the American chart. This is no silly game. This is very dangerous. And what's dangerous is not Trump. What's dangerous is how these people swallow it, how these people get behind him. And you must admit, it's not really been in America's nature to stand up and shut him out. We did a pretty good job in the election, but as you know, it's growing. It's got to grow. It's got to grow, and he's got to go. So let me show you another point. It's really fascinating. His niece talks about it in her book on TV. This is just fascinating. One of the most critical spots in his chart, and I've done many videos on this in the past, is the Venus-Saturn in Cancer. The Venus-Saturn in Cancer, okay? Venus-Saturn, 2 degrees away from each other in Cancer. Well, what does Venus-Saturn mean? Venus-Saturn means I will let you into the foyer, but you're not getting into my kitchen. I'll let you in the foyer, give you some cookies and some milk, but you ain't getting into the heart of the house. To guard it. The Venus-Saturn is the heart of this man. I've been screwed. I haven't been loved. My daddy marched me around. My mommy marched me around. I didn't get the TLC I needed. That's the Venus, Saturn, and Cancer. And every time that's been hit by Pluto or other big bodies, we've seen this become an enormous trend within the country. So you've got the people who really have been excluded that are demanding to be included through the good side of Eris. And you've got the opposite. You've got the people doing their crazy stuff at the Capitol, feeling like they shouldn't be punished, feeling like they deserve special attention, which is the bad side of Eris. So, when I saw the Eris in the chart and I saw the bucket pattern Eris, I just was astounded. Because how many of you could put up with this? How many of you could put up with this day after day after day, being called these names, being joked about, being laughed at in all countries around the world? Who could survive that? An Eris personality, because an Arisian personality, more chaos, the better. So I went looking around. Let's look at Mr. Trump's fourth harmonic. That would be his emotional nature. And that would be this one. That's right. Okay. In the fourth harmonic, this is like zooming in on his emotional nature. We have the sun opposite Pluto with a T-square to Jupiter and Gemini. Now, Rick, you know all about Jupiter and Gemini, but Jupiter and Gemini is not really the planet you want to be involved with the sun and Pluto. And you certainly don't want Pluto to be opposite your sun in Pisces as an emotional chart. And you don't want Venus next to Saturn. And you certainly don't want Neptune troubled sitting there on the descendant next to Eris in Aries. You got somebody with a bucket pattern to Mars in Scorpio and has no idea how to control emotions. His only way of controlling emotions is to attack you. That's what that says to me. The other chart I looked at was the eighth harmonic. And I look at the eighth now and then. It's very intriguing. The eighth is intriguing because it's the power. It's the Scorpio chart. It's the Scorpio house. Eighth is the eighth sign is Scorpio. The eighth harmonic has a lot to do with how does this person deal with emotional issues. Well, what do you got up and down the midheaven? What do you got on the main axis of the chart? Jupiter opposite Pluto. Well, Jupiter opposite Pluto is all about power struggles. And those power struggles, and that is true. How do I know it's true? Because I've checked it out. That's how you know these things. You don't get it from a book. The book might tell you, but go check it out. Take a person, look at their eighth harmonic, and see if it makes sense in their life in terms of power struggle stories. And you'll see it's true. That's how you get good at this stuff. You check it out. You don't just go, oh, he said so, good. So that power struggle, what does it do? It lets his T-square out to Eris and Neptune. Let me tell you something. If you ever got on the mat with this guy and wrestled, you better get out of town. Oh, she just came in to show me. Oh, he's gonna get us.
Can they see it on screen?
Yeah, they already told me about it. He's gonna get us. Son of a bitch, I'll get you back. That's the Mars in Leo rising. You don't think I'll get you back. Thank you. It's exactly what this chart is. He will not stop. He won't stop till he's dead, I think. I don't think he's so much like Hitler in terms of world domination, but he's Yeah, it is scary, Marcia. But he's definitely scary in terms of the wow factor. If anybody's going to flip around the wow factor, you see that picture? Better not let him out. He knows it's false, but he's convinced. He's convinced that he's been screwed. He's been screwed badly. 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 Now, it's my opinion. You can differ if you want to. It's my opinion. Yeah, more than 215. It's my opinion that he's just going to go crazy. That he already is, and he's just going to go over. Because I learned in life a long time ago, I didn't think you could go crazy. And one day I started to go. In 1974, I thought, wow, I'm really starting to go over the edge here. And I went, damn, I didn't know there was an edge. There's an edge there. There's so much you can take. This guy's going on the rooftop with the gun or something. I don't know. It's very sad, but he's had 6 billion warnings. So I showed you the base of the chart. Honey, that is one scary photograph. You're gonna see that. You got 7 million people right now in Photoshop. Oh God. But the thing about Trump that's so unusual is he's like the puffer fish. You look up the puffer fish. The more it gets attacked, the more it gets bigger, so you can't swallow it. Did you ever see his niece on these news shows talking about him and about what it was like in the family and reporting on her novels that she wrote? She's talking like this. She can't even get the words out. It's so bad. It's so unbelievable. So what matters is not these guys. What matters is us guys. That's what matters is us guys. This is what we've been talking about recently. So let's all go wash our hands and come back in 1 minute. Because this guy is not us. This guy is not us. And there are a lot of people, 30%, that are kind of claiming that he is. And it's our time to show them that they're wrong. It's our time to show them that they're wrong. And if we've got to make democratic socialism turned into a good phrase, then we got to do it. Because Republican doesn't work and Democrat doesn't work. And if we're prone to idiots like this, what's down the hall? You guys watched the Republican debate last night. Oh, God. So, anyhow, I'm very proud of my girl. She's working hard to help with the Democratic New Deal movement. I'm doing what I can with you communists right here. And I'm going to open this sound up and I'm going to wake up Kate, because Kate's fading away on me. I think she's already gone. Anybody would like to chip in, talk about the charts or talk about comments about these two. You've seen the heart of it. And I will say one thing more. I knew it would be bad, but I never knew we'd see a face like that. I never knew we'd see one like that. Talk about the puffer fish. He's going to explode inside. He's going to have a breakdown. Hey, how about putting him and Rudy in the same cell? The New Yorkers like that joke. Come on, let me hear your comments. Let me hear your comments. Anybody?
I just
Yeah,
look
yeah,
forward
wait,
to,
Marcia. Marcia's next. Go ahead, Marcia.
I want to say that these prosecutors are so strong. They don't seem to have fear.
Good.
They want things to be right. They want democracy to be right. And Fani Willis, hats off to her, man.
You're exactly right. And they see we had to be pushed to this edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote so many articles 20 years, 15 years ago about Pluto and what we had to do to get off our butt. And I was met with and we're finally doing it. Thank God. You're exactly right. Yes, I'm trying to get the people in the order that they raised their hand. Claudia's next and then Rick. Go ahead.
well, I was trying to find, I just opened my solar fire. I wonder, because I do agree with you, Rick. I just always have felt like, oh, this is it now. This is it. He's finally gonna get what he deserves. But he doesn't. And
Don't you ever think you got this guy figured out
Yeah.
astrologically. I'll show you my
obvious.
filing cabinet full of eggs.
I know. But I do wonder, so we're either going in the really scary direction, or I don't know what Pluto and Aquarius is gonna do for him, but he's got well, his rising sign is a late Leo, but there's something else that's early fixed for him. And oh, it's his own Pluto. His Pluto is in Leo. It's 10 degrees. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to. I think it has to be this bad. I think we
that's
all
right.
know it has to be
right.
this kind of. We're not going to, turn things around if it's like this mediocre person that's not really rocking our world.
Right.
It has to be like this.
You're exactly right. And here we are. Here we are. And look out, because we got too many good people with too much power. Watch out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. Eric Kempe?
Yeah, I will say that I was looking at some transits coming. The sun, for the past month or so, has gone through his 12th house, coming out into the first now. He's going to be much more vocal and saying what he thinks.
Jeez.
I don't think that goes well for him. Pluto is leaving the 5th, going into the 6th within some time. We did not look at Damocles. I did. And Damocles is about to go into his 7th house, conjoining the.
And here's an astrologer, you're doing exactly what I said. He's trying to make sense of the chart. So I will sit here and let my mouth shut and listen.
He also has Karma, Saturn, and Damocles all closing in on his natal Damocles in the 7th house.
So what does Damocles do?
Oh, that is the sword that hangs above people in power positions.
Oh.
And when it falls, so do they.
Hey, let me tell you guys, because maybe I didn't say this enough. You're right, Rick. The thing about Eris is, and the reason this is so Arisian, Eris can't stand people misusing their power. It just can't stand it. And it came out in 2005 when he did.
Yeah.
You're doing great, Rick. Continue.
The other thing is Uranus is getting out of that 9th house, going to go into the 10th. So when you see Uranus come into the public sector, it's not just his spiritual ideas that are going wild, he's going to have the rug pulled out from under him publicly.
We're gonna get to see his pink underwear.
Pretty much. And I also think it's intriguing to recognize that his anti-vertex, using the 10:54 a.m. birth time, which is 3 minutes different than what you're used, but it is rated AA, so it's somewhere different. It is right connected to the asteroids Karma, Saturn, and Venus, all in Cancer, and Saturn represents limitations.
You're gonna have to explain to people what an
Sure.
anti-vertex is.
So the vertex tells you the things that are destined to be brought to you, and the anti-vertex shows what you bring to the world. Saturn conjoined Venus, he brought limitations on the voices of women.
Yes.
That's and it's coming home to roost. It's not boding well because I think his Venus Saturn is affecting that midheaven, and he has Achilles, the asteroid, coming into conjunction with Karma, Saturn, Venus in his natal chart. So his Achilles heel is coming to roost at the same time Damocles is. If you know your Greek myths, that sounds like a double whammy.
Well, you're going down the road that I stopped going down because I got too much egg on my face. But I'm going to encourage you, go ahead and, oh, what is this now? Is that Damocles?
Asteroid Damocles and then
Oh my
Achilles.
God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
I'll let it go at that.
Come on. Thank you, Rick, very much.
Thank you.
You're really excellent with your comments. Let's hear from Linda Platt. We got so many Lindas. Yeah, Linda Azruhan. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not saying something about what I know. I'm trying to kind of ask a question. And it's about the words, the avatar, and it's about what you said about the two sides of Eris.
Right.
And it's what you said about how do you live with this?
When you have an avatar, it is normally thought of as this great big positive thing. It's not what an avatar is. An avatar is a symbol of a archetypal energy. So an avatar can be extremely negative or very positive. How do you live with it? We can't go there. Everybody goes there. Let me answer your question, and you can follow up, please. Where do we go there? We have no idea. That's why all this is taking place during a Pluto return. We're finding and summoning our own strength. Go ahead, dear.
That's it. That's the answer.
What you're saying is, what do we do? What you're really saying is, God, I hope there's a good outcome. And you can't use that in astrology.
I wasn't thinking that. That's not what I was thinking. I was thinking, calm down here. Find the point at which.
Okay. Well, we're all saying the same thing, and we're all on the right page, and we're all going to have everything hiding behind that hateful face. But he's going to implode. He's going to implode. And I'll tell you what, this guy has been through so much in the past 10 years. Astrologically, he's been hit by everything. It's unbelievable. Just unbelievable. I've watched it. And nothing affected him. Anyhow, go ahead. Linda Platt.
Okay. One of the things that when you ask the question about how can someone stand being
butchered all the time,
and the joke of the world and all of that sort of thing. In psychology, one of the things that's true about people who have high narcissistic tendencies is that and politicians would fall along this line too, is that no news is bad news. I mean, he wants
That's
attention.
right.
It doesn't matter what kind of attention it is. It can be as negative as possible. It doesn't matter a bit to him. I mean, today he made a primetime spectacle out of being booked and mugshotted.
But
for
did you see that
multiple
picture?
felonies.
That picture is Mars and Leo rising. You son of a bitches, I will get you back. I will get you back. And he won't stop until he does.
And
That's
the
his,
way that he, the
that's
way
his
that he,
thinking.
the way that he needs that kind of retribution, revenge, and so
Right.
on
Right.
means that negativity just
Right.
feeds. It's like a feedback loop.
That's exactly right. And the one thing I want to add is he does not have any real power. He doesn't. He's powerless. He's just a little boy playing in a sandbox. That's what he's doing. Playing in a sandbox.
I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. John.
Can you explain to me, help me understand something? Rudy Giuliani, I've always thought was a very, very smart lawyer. I don't understand. Maybe there's an astrological explanation for someone who is so smart, at least I thought he was, to actually represent Mr. Trump and become a
How did it
defendant.
happen?
How could he be so? Use the
I'll
word
tell you
stupid.
exactly how it happened. I'll tell you exactly, like a lot of other people. He's a Gemini with a lot of Leo, and he went nuts when he got all the fame.
You're talking about Trump or
Giuliani. Giuliani. He went nuts when he got all the fame. When he got all the fame, he just thought he could do no wrong. Until he started crying and the mascara came down his face. That's the answer. Your moon in Leo, you got to watch moon in Leo. It has many sides to it, and many people do very well with it. But you got to watch it, because if it gets out of control, it just thinks it's megalomania. It just thinks it can do wrong, no wrong. Other people next to him have the same symbols. It's usually never, John, it's usually never the sun sign. The sun sign is not enough to do it. It takes more complexity than that.
Thank you.
Well, look what he did at 9/11. Look what he did. You got the falling towers, and he's up there with Bush and I saved all your butts. Boy, that's a big job on the ego. See, when you follow these people and you watch them go through transits, like I told you, when the transit hits you, if it doesn't blow you up towards the positive, usually the same energy is going to work somewhere. It usually blows you up towards the negative. That's what happened with Giuliani. With Trump's case, he's just unpredictable. That's why I'm amused to watch what Rick's doing, because Rick's trying to actually analyze the guy astrologically, and I'm all ears. Do you see that picture? Jesus God. I saw him many times when he wanted to be hanging out on Broadway, a real jerk. What did you see, Marcia? You wanted to get on stage? You're muted. You are muted. Muted.
He used to hang out a lot when I did the show Beauty and the Beast. He had a crush on Belle, the lead, a female, and he was always hanging around. And then he was also another show I worked on called Big, another musical based on the Tom Hanks movie. And there were a lot of red sneakers and colored sneakers. Well, opening night he came, he put red sneakers on and spoke to the audience before the curtain went up. And then he used to go to this restaurant where a lot of the theater people would hang out, like a Greek place. You know, it was just kind of our place, and he started going there. And everybody was like, what the hell? You know, he was a jerk.
These are some of the negative qualities of Gemini Sag. It's true. He's certainly by no means a good representative. Anybody else got things to say? Erica, go ahead, honey.
I just think it's interesting when you compare his chart to the United States chart, how he just fits in there. It's like we need to see this about ourselves because he's like the
Exactly.
embodiment.
Yes.
His sun is the embodiment of our Mars. His sun is 22 Gemini. Our Mars is 21, 23 Gemini.
Exactly.
And then his North Node is right there. So like that's his, you know, he came here to accomplish this communication. And then his Venus is right on our Gemini. I mean, on our Mercury, the communication. So our, you know, the way that we get fooled with communication and the anger that we have, he embodies this. So I think that's why he resonates so much with people.
Yeah, you're right. Wait till this thing dances around for a 24-hour news cycle. Oh my God. Anyhow, I'm gonna wrap it up for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. It was an hour to try to neutrally show you what's in these guys' charts. Now, you saw with Hitler didn't have to go down the side roads that he did. If he'd gone down a truer road, it would have been hard. But in Trump's case, Trump didn't have much choice. He's working against so many negative energies. But Trump is the anti-heiress, is what he is. Thank you all for being very patient. I hope you're cool tonight. I'm going to go watch the news. Any more dirty pictures. And I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Love y'all.
Thank you both.
Rick.
Love all.
Good night.
Love you all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Good
Night.
night,
Take care.
Veronica.
Sophie
Good
says
night.
bye.
Good night,
We'll
Claudia.
get a
Good
little
night.
sanity back.